Cracking, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Golf on Tap. As always, I'm Jack Bushman, joined by Tony Marchese and Ross Baran. If you're joining us right now, make sure to go and jump on over to the YouTube feed so you can go and throw us a like. Thank you very much. And jump into the comment section. Let us know your reaction from an all-time epic Sunday at Pinehurst No. 2. Bryson DeChambeau's victory, Rory McIlroy's heartbreaking loss. We'll be getting into all of that here in just a moment, as well as your favorite plays for this week's Travelers Championship, who you're going to be fading as well. Let us know all of your thoughts down in the comment section. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to follow Golf on Tap on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. That way, if you're not able to catch up with us live, you're still able to check in on all of the latest episodes. Fellas, oh my goodness, I still am having a hard time quite comprehending and putting words into what happened over the last 24 hours. As I mentioned off top, an epic Sunday at Pinehurst No. 2. It's what we wanted down the stretch of the U.S. Open. We had big names in the hunt, a tight tournament, a golf course that was playing fantastically difficult. Everything was up for grabs, but I don't think any of us envisioned it being quite the finish that it was. Bryson DeChambeau and Rory McIlroy going neck and neck. Patrick Cantlay was there for quite a while too, which was pretty annoying. Cantlay was like that, like that math teacher that when you're trying to, peek at your buddy's test and get those answers, she's just a little bit too close, and you're just wanting her to be anyway but here. Anywhere but right here, right now. Get away from the fun. Eventually, though, it came down to a 2-horse race. Bryson and Rory McIlroy both on the 18. Rory ahead, and he misses his second putt from within 4 feet in a 3-hole stretch. Bryson goes on to make one of the all-time up and downs, a shot that we'll be remembering, we'll be seeing for a long, long time. Crazy how everything unfolded, boys. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on a wild finish to the U.S. Open. Ross, I'll turn it over to you first, man. And also, congratulations to all of us, by the way, for a big squad dub, the first ever between us three here at Golf on Tap, with Bryson DeChambeau coming with the outright ticket. It looked sketchy there for a while, but Rory gagged it away down the stretch. Unfortunately for you, Mr. Marchese, even though I know your heart and your wallet was probably tearing you in 2 different directions. We'll get to you in just 1 minute, but Ross, how you doing first on this Monday afternoon? And give me your thoughts from what transpired in those last hour or two at Pinehurst No. 2.
I am doing phenomenal because, like you said, we have a group dub on the board for the team. Phenomenal win. Phenomenal tournament. I waited so long. I had the gear, everything for this tournament for a year saved up, and it was everything we could have hoped for. I had 0 complaints. I thought that was the epitome of major golf, a major golf tournament, the best in the world playing for it, and it being the People's Open. It's the U.S. Open. Anyone can make this thing if you have your day, and I think we got the best result we could ask for. We had drama. We had it close down the wire. Other than, I think we're all on the same page where, thank God, Patrick Cantlay finally fell off, because I could not handle having to see that be a thing. But otherwise, man, Bryson is so damn likable. And once again, if you don't like Bryson at this point, the type of person he is, then you just have a gigantic dump in your pants, and that's it. That's your problem. Go clean out the doo-doo.
The full People's Champion came unleashed at Pinehurst No. 2 with the fist pumps, the crowd roaring, and then even just the celebration after, Ross. I mean, going and letting all the fans touch the trophy and staying at Pinehurst to sign autographs for all the kids. And even after, there were people flooding the apartment that he was staying at, just taking all the time in the world to thank the fans and really, just not even putting himself in the spotlight whatsoever. And I think that's what's so likable about Bryson is, first off, he's an entertainer, and he does things on the golf course that very few people are able to do. And he also tunes into that emotion that I think all of us love to attach to. And, most of the time in other sports, golf is a little bit unique where you don't get a lot of those reactions, and tranquility and being calm is, kind of one of the prevailing factors, if you will, where in other sports you see huge moments, you get all the emotions, all the fist pumps, all the big reactions, all the interactions with the crowd. Bryson is, I can't really think of many guys who interact with the fan base the way that he does ever in professional golf. It's truly incredible. And them feeding off one another, I thought just made it an even more spectacular atmosphere at Pinehurst. So, it's just been
What
awesome to
was
watch
it?
Bryson turn into this type of the way that he's looked at in the spotlight. As someone who's always loved Bryson, it's really cool to see people kind of falling on the ship.
What was it for Friday when he did the layup and he looked at the fans and was like, "I'm sorry, please don't hate me."
He
When
knew what was coming.
he easily could go for it and probably get on in two on the par 5, and it's like, no, I'm gonna lay up. And as he's grabbing the iron, like, he looks at the crowd and says, "I'm sorry, please don't hate me."
Still wound up in a tap-in birdie, by the way, might I add. But yes, and he knows he can play into the crowd, and he knows there's a time and place with it too, and he's still laser focused out there. The scientist, he's doing the math literally on the greens. He's just different. He's unique, and people attract to unique and different. So it was incredible to see Bryson find a way to pull that out. And that bunker shot, was just one of the best shots that I've ever seen since I've been following golf. One of the best finishes that I've seen since I've been following golf. Unfortunately, Tony, it came at the expense of your boy, Rory McIlroy. Two just devastating missed short putts, along with, I thought, a lot of boneheaded decisions down the stretch. The missed green at 16, I think it was, with the par 3 where he wound up making bogey there. He threw it over the green and it wound up in a terrible lie. Surefire bogey there. And then on 18 as well, pulling out the driver, missing the fairway, giving himself, a tough opportunity to get up and down. He hits a sick recovery shot, but still left it a couple of feet past the hole. It's 3 feet 11 inches. People are going to knock him for that. He misses 2 short putts down the stretch. That's a slippery putt there. Unfortunately, it just came at the absolute worst time for Rory McIlroy, someone who's been so close in major championships over the last 10 years since he last won one in 2014. Back-to-back runner-ups in the U.S. Open, each by 1 stroke. This one for sure more painful than the last, though. We see him, leave immediately after Bryson makes that up and down, doesn't even stick around for the media session, which a lot of people gave him flack for. And then, as we just found out about an hour before jumping on this, withdraws from the Travelers Championship. So, Tony, give me your full thoughts on the final few hours of the U.S. Open and what it was like to watch Rory just completely melt down those final 3 holes, man.
I've been thinking about this, obviously hopping on this show and having to talk about this entire situation. But I will say this before I go into anything else. The right guy won the U.S. Open. Bryson DeChambeau played his ass off. He put himself into a lot of trouble as well. Rory made some bad decisions. Bryson wasn't hitting fairways at all on Sunday. He just overcame obstacles, and that's what you had to do at Pinehurst in order to win. Obviously, you look at the heartbreak, and that's what people are going to focus on for Rory McIlroy is those missed putts. I think he's going to be haunted by them for a long time. I would be haunted by missing those putts. I think both of you guys and anybody listening to the show would be haunted by missing those putts on a regular day, let alone with a major title on the line. Everybody wants to talk about, was it the right thing for Rory to leave, or should he have stuck around, shook Bryson's hand, did the pleasantries? I think, we got to take into perspective here. This is a guy that has spent the last 10 years searching for this victory. This is going to hurt tremendously. And then you add in some of the off the course stuff that's been going on with Rory McIlroy for the past, 4 or 5 weeks. This sort of felt like a culmination of a bunch of different things going on in a guy's life where you could tell you just miss one little thing and it derails the entire train. Played an excellent front 9 to keep himself in contention there, but you have to look back into Friday's round really at Rory McIlroy and say, like, did we miss there too? Could we have separated ourselves from the pack on Friday or even Saturday? I still go back to Bryson played better golf. He was able to get himself out of what they considered the native areas at Pinehurst, number 2, I think I heard native area about 50 times in the last hour and a half of the U.S. Open. Yeah, the Wiregrass and the native areas. Bryson was just, I mean, if he's probably the best native area player that we've seen ever. He was just able to get himself out of trouble. And, everything that you guys already talked about, that energy that I felt from Bryson in that final round, especially as he, goes through the turn, signs the hat of the guy in the wheelchair, gave, I think a handshake or a 5 fist bump to every single fan along the way. That to me was sort of the defining moment. You saw Rory kind of stop and shake hands with just the one individual and then sort of breeze by everyone else. I don't know if it's karma. I don't know what it is. I'm a huge superstition guy, and I think I shared a text with you guys late last night that I saw from Todd Lewis talking about how Bryson's mom stayed home. This came on Father's Day. There's all of the history there between Bryson and Payne Stewart. There were just so many stars aligning for Bryson DeChambeau to sit there and say that Rory McIlroy deserved this more. Sometimes there's just the hero of the story. And this week to me was more or less Bryson DeChambeau's week to do this. And that's a better storyline. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a huge Rory fan, but I don't feel sorry for him one bit. Finishing second in the U.S. Open is not an easy feat. It's still a great round of golf, 4 great rounds of golf from Rory McIlroy. It just wasn't enough to get the job done. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. Yes, Rory's going to be pissed at that. Yes, people are going to be pissed that Rory McIlroy didn't stick around. But guess what? When your stars don't align in your life, you're not sticking around for shit either. That's what I'm not sticking around to do any of that. If I played my heart out and missed it on just fractions of an inch and it didn't break my way, I'm probably going to be salty about it. That's the same thing with, missing a promotion or, you ask a girl out, she doesn't want to go out with you. All the little things that could have gone wrong. Rory had those things go wrong. Bryson had those things go right. It was a great story. It was a great U.S. Open. I think we're better for it. You talk about Rory pulling out of the Travelers this week. I know he released a statement on his X account this afternoon. He's going to take a few weeks to get his head right and all this other stuff. I'm sure he's got a lot of things at home also to go and clean up. Obviously, the divorce is off. That report came out right before the U.S. Open started. That was another shocker in this whole week of a ton of different golf storylines. This is the right thing for him to do. Go home, get your head right, figure it out. I wouldn't be surprised to see Rory McIlroy go win the next major after what just happened there, because there's going to be a fire, an even bigger fire than the 10-year buildup that we've already seen, for him to go out there and try and win one of these things again. Not surprised that he's taken some time off. I think it's good for him. He's played a lot in this recent stretch here. Go home, get things cleaned up, and move on. But at the end of the day, I think the right guy won this tournament.
Yeah, I honestly didn't really have a problem with Rory leaving the premises early, even though, like, many people have referred to how Phil Mickelson's done it before. It usually happens in the past, but there's a lot of baggage there for Rory. And as you alluded to, Tony, there's a lot going on right now for him as well. And everything that he's given to the game, all the media and all the marketing and everything that he does to grow the game, like, I don't think he should be forced to be put under a microscope in a situation like that. And I don't even have a problem with him withdrawing from the Travelers either, even though it is going to come with a fine because it's the second signature event that he'll miss out on. He did that last year. That's not a problem to me.
Does a fine really matter to Rory McIlroy?
No.
And I mean, how many guys have to get right home after a golf round to their wives? I mean, this is not a problem.
It's not a problem. The only issue that I had with it is he's doing New England a little bit dirty by skipping out on this tournament, and that's like the area that he's going to be representing in TGL. So I thought that was kind of crappy that he's been committed to this tournament for so long, but I do get the circumstances, and I'm not blaming Rory McIlroy for it. I mean, I'd certainly be upset in a situation like that, and I don't know what I do exactly, but I understand, and I'm not going to harp on him for that whatsoever. But I do agree, Tony. I think Bryson, even though it would have been Rory winning his first major in 10 years, even though it would have been old NBC Sports and Brandel Chambly's dream come true had Rory finally done it on Sunday. Oh my goodness. I do think that the better storyline was Bryson winning this thing, and the the good guy turn that Bryson has been on, because this guy was seriously one of the most hated golfers in the entire world. And now you catch people who have publicly come out on record and said negative things about him, who are on Golf Channel and on Sky Sports. I was actually watching with my dad yesterday, and he has some weird ass cable box, man, but we were watching on TSN, funny enough. So we had the Sky Sports feed. So I was getting like the British side of it. But hearing just even their reporters say, like, Bryson's won me over. And there was one of them that was like, he's got you, doesn't he? You like Bryson. It was almost like you like Krabby Patties, don't you, Squidder? It was like, you like Bryson, don't you? Because what's not to like about him? I mean, he smashes the golf ball. And one thing I will say, fellas, I was begging the guy to hit a goddamn fairway on Sunday. I mean, just begging. Driver changing face, said it kind of flattened on him during his warm-up round. Couldn't have come at a worse time. He only hits 5 fairways on Sunday. People will think back and they'll look at this leaderboard and they'll go, Bryson and Rory at the top, bombers win at Pinehurst. Bryson didn't win this thing because of his distance. He won this thing because of his short game, man. His short game was unbelievable all week long. As someone who watched just a ton of Bryson, even before the weekend, like the up and downs that he made, the one on 8 was just marvelous in the final round. Put it where guys were absolutely dead all tournament long, makes a 15-footer to get up and down. The putter was fabulous, only 1 3-putt, and it unfortunately came at the worst at that time, seemingly, point in the round on 15, like the putter and the around the green and his bunker play. And when I was texting one of my buddies when he was in that sand on 18, I said he's been good in the bunkers all week long because he had been. So that putter in that short game is what won Bryson DeChambeau this tournament. And it was actually, if you guys remember when we were talking about the top of the board, it was one of the reasons that I was on Bryson going into this week, because I said, like Colin Morikawa, like this growing short game, we've always known Bryson's a good putter, but it really feels like he's put the around the green game together here recently, especially as he's kind of dialed it back off the tee. And we saw it at Augusta, a course that, you know, historically doesn't set up great for the style that he plays. He was in contention all week there. How many times he chipped in at the PGA Championship at Valhalla, and how good his around the green play was in that final round to go bogey free and press up on Xander. And we saw it all come together to win this U.S. Open. And like you said, Tony, the stars were aligned, doing it like Payne Stewart did, making a memory that'll be forever in the history books at Pinehurst number 2, man. Such a spectacular week. I do hate that it came at the expense of Rory McIlroy, but it's the way sometimes these things go. And
Jack, I want to ask a question to both of you guys.
Yeah, go for it.
With Bryson winning this, here's a live guy, right, that comes out, and now he is arguably, I don't know, I wouldn't want to call him the face of golf right now, but if there's a guy that could be the face of golf, Bryson DeChambeau is sort of that guy. You talk about the people's champ. He's out there shaking hands. He's making it all about the fan. He spoke many times about, you know, the engagement. He's a guy that's driving a lot of views on social media. People are falling in love with Bryson DeChambeau. What does that do for the PGA Tour live debates here? Are people going to start tuning in after watching Bryson DeChambeau win the U.S. Open to live events, to watch him play? I don't think that moves the needle.
No.
But where do you get more Bryson? Is this just a 4-time-a-year thing that Bryson DeChambeau shows up? Look at all the coverage that he got from NBC and the Golf Channel over the last 24 hours. I mean, you got guys who are completely against live, but they're talking about how great Bryson DeChambeau is. I'm driving my kid up to Cog Hill this afternoon, listening to ESPN radio. They never talk about golf. They're sitting there and did a 20-minute segment, if not longer, because I had to get out of the car. They're talking about Bryson DeChambeau. Yes, he just won, but how long of a, I guess, leash do we get here before the golf world completely forgets about Bryson DeChambeau again until he shows up to the next major? Elephant in the room question here. What is this? Is it a missed opportunity from the PGA? Is it Bryson's just that lovable? What do you guys make of this?
This is pressure has been put on the PGA to work out that deal even faster, because people are not going to tune in to live. It's not going to get off the ground like they want it to. But people want Bryson. people want to see this. I think one of the biggest things that set him apart on this weekend was the fact that in the moment, potentially one of the biggest moments of his career going down the stretch, you're watching Bryson is shaking hands, he's high-fiving, he's signing autographs, he's living in the moment, enjoying every moment of it, because he knows it's just as special to the fans as it is to him, and he's embracing that. Like Jack literally has in the title, the People's Champ. He knows how special this moment is. It's a Father's Day final round U.S. Open. He's making the moments. He's making memories for everyone, not just himself. He realizes the moment is bigger than just him. And that's something the PGA Tour is going to take into account, needs to take into account moving forward, that we need to move this along. It's no more, we came into a framework agreement last year and now we kind of have another agreement. Now this is going to spiral it along like, all right, how do we get him back? How do we get eyes on him on our end moving forward?
And the one thing I will say too, Ross, is what Bryson DeChambeau is almost a culmination of a perfect superstar that the PGA Tour can't afford to miss. Because I guarantee you there's someone that works for the PGA Tour or NBC Sports going, damn, I wish Scotty Scheffler could do that. And not everyone can. And this is another thing that I've been fortunate enough to kind of realize at golf tournaments. Like, you get these interactions with guys because they're walking from hole to hole and the crowd's everywhere where you're right next to them. And some guys, give fans knuckles and they interact with the fans. And then some guys are just head down, staying in their own lane, because not everyone can go out of that focus for a second and get themselves back to where they need to be. Bryson DeChambeau can, and he can get himself back to the top of the game as one of the superstars. There are not many players who can go and do both, who can play into the crowd and still play at a high level. This is a rare opportunity for a golfer to have both of those things and to be on YouTube showing his personality, growing the game in a multitude of different directions.
Max Homa needs to start winning majors.
Max Homa is just not that good. He's just not
but
that
he's
good.
he's got the interaction stuff down. I mean, we watched him sign a Zin.
He's got to do the harder
at the
aspect.
BMW.
He's got to do the harder aspect. He's got to win majors.
That's the problem. They don't have anybody that's like Bryson right now.
Exactly. And that's why this needs to happen. And an interesting point is I have heard some people say, I wonder if too much Bryson would make people hate Bryson again, because there is all that tinkering and the week-to-week interactions that he gets. But I think salty balls, just these weird comments that he makes. I still think 4 times a year to see Bryson DeChambeau, and as we'll get into here in a little bit, he's not going to be playing for the United States at the Olympics either because of his world golf ranking status, which is a major bummer. I think I speak on behalf of everyone who watched the U.S. Open yesterday that when I say that it would be awesome to see Bryson DeChambeau represent the red, white, and blue in Paris later on this summer. But it's too little of Bryson. It's too little for a handful of those guys that are over there on Live Now. And I think this is, again, just another reminder that this needs to get done, man. Everyone's just sick of it. I'm honestly sick of having these conversations week in and week out. Are we seeing progress? Are we not? How do we know? We hear rumblings sometimes. We never see any finished work. And man, if this doesn't move the needle and get the PGA Tour and all these folks realizing, we got to unify golf. And that's even what Bryson has gone out and said in a lot of his interviews, when they ask him these awkward questions of, how do you feel about not playing for the Olympics? I did like to hear him say on the Pat McAfee show today, he understands he made his own bed. But it's still just a bummer regardless that men's golf isn't unified because we're missing out on all this talent playing together on a weekly basis. And it's just a shame.
Do you guys think that him joining Live is part of the reinvention though? Because I sort of think that if we didn't have this, I guess, divide, you don't see this side of Bryson DeChambeau.
No,
I don't think he ever reinvents himself, which, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say, well, thankfully they're, Live and PGA have all this going on, but I don't think I think Bryson is the largest benefactor.
No, 100%. Everyone, in their presser when they, got all this money, they said they wanted to go over there and grow the game of golf. Bryson's the only one who's gone over there and actually has done it. He's the only one that's actually used his image and his likeness to actually grow the game. And Liv has definitely benefited him. And what he's just been able to do and to have that freedom to go into that side of things, yeah, I think Bryson is undoubtedly the biggest winner in terms of his popularity and how he's looked at in the game, and also financially, because guess what? Eventually these guys are going to be coming back. It's just a matter of time, and he's going to have a couple extra $100 million on top of it.
Do you think that when these live deals run out, for most of the guys, it's after next season.
Yeah.
Do you think when these live deals run out that Bryson is going to be one of the main people that the PGA Tour kind of goes, hey, if you want to come back, like there's not really going to be any repercussion for you?
I don't even know what repercussions they can do for people other than not give them the incentives that they've given the players who stayed on the PGA Tour now. Like what other repercussions can they really give them that's feasible? Like
you already have the cash.
I'm asking, honestly asking aloud, like what repercussions could they do? You know, like
you're just not bought into the players fund. That's it.
I was going to say, like, you probably aren't eligible for equity for X amount of years. You have to stay committed to us again to earn, just like a teacher gets tenure. It's you like restart from scratch. When you're here 7-8 years, you can start to earn equity again in the tour, blah blah blah. But I think that's like all you can do. But if I'm the PGA, if he becomes a free agent, I'd be the first one making the call, like, hey, do you want to come back? Well, here we can set these guidelines for you to make it fair.
But Russ, it's also going to be a negotiation here. Like, you have to realize there's a negotiation aspect to this as well. If you're the PGA Tour and you want Bryson back to make your product better, are you going to penalize him for coming back? I think that's the problem here that I'm looking at. Because Greg Norman could just go throw him a bunch more cash. That might be more lucrative. You're still going to go compete in your majors. You can win more money there. You got this. If you go back to the PGA, you've got to go through this whole trial period. They're not going to, you can't penalize him by keeping him out of signature events, because that's
punishing us.
That's punishing us, and it's punishing the fan. It's punishing the product. It goes against everything the PGA Tour says that they want to do. There's no win. Like, you have to make the best offer to get the guy.
Yeah. Speaking of punishing us, fellas, what was punishing yesterday was listening to Baran DeChambeau on the U.S. Open broadcast for the entirety of Father's Day, because there was nothing more clear that Baran DeChambeau did not want Bryson DeChambeau to win this U.S. Open, calling him a luck sack, like openly just saying he's gotten lucky through 3 rounds to be in the lead of the U.S. Open. Anytime he hit the ball offline, he's dead. Horrible lie, horrible angle. Rory misses a green. He actually missed it in the right spot. It's not a tough up and down from there. It made me want to rip my hair out. And just even being on Twitter yesterday and seeing everyone tweeting about Baran DeChambeau, there's been this, as Ross referred to when we were talking before getting on the air, there's been this like ongoing joke that Baran DeChambeau is like a know-it-all who doesn't have any basis to back that up substantially whatsoever in his own golfing career. But this was like I feel like a public outcry that everyone jumped on board of the fuck Brandel gang, because it was just clear bias in the broadcasting, which is, the broadcast in itself is always a problem week in and week out. But now we have a 4-man broadcast where no one knows who's the head honcho. We're going to playing through in crucial shots on Sunday of the U.S. Open. Even when they come back, it's making me want to plug my ears. I thought it was a real tough look for NBC Sports and how this final round coverage went in terms of the shots that they were showing. And I always find it funny that they go to a commercial-free hour when it's like a 2-man race at the end, and we're just watching guys walk up and down fairways instead of when everyone's in the mix and we can watch multiple shots going on at the same time. The commercials were endless. I thought it was awful. And it's a shame, because I thought the coverage was really good those first couple of days with the multicast and the multiple feature groups. But disappointed in how the final round coverage went, to be honest, boys. What do you guys think?
Well, once again, we got Brandon Shambles just going off on tirade. And I do see we do have a comment from Ben. Ben, great question. We will 100% be addressing this shortly in our episode, so stay tuned. But yeah, Brandon DeChambeau's going and doing his thing once again, and it's funny because like our friend Christopher Powers, who loves to have fun and play with all of Golf X, was even making comments like, "All right, enough's enough." Like, come on, man. Just I don't know. And for me, it's a struggle because I get where he comes from some of the time, but like this week was so over the top of just I dislike this, I dislike this, I dislike this. It's like we fucking know, dude, you don't. But guess what? Everyone else has come to like him, so you're the one that's in the minority now. Like, chill the hell out. Yes, we know you're the Rory stan besides Tony Marchese here, but Jesus Christ, come on.
Yeah, I don't know who skirted out of that parking lot faster. Was it Rory or was it Brandel Chambly, who had nothing to say after Bryson made that putt? That
old man yelled
on 18.
Loud in real life.
Is there anyone that's as miserable as that guy? I literally don't know if I've ever heard him give someone a compliment. It's just a shame. It's a shame that they give him airtime to voice his opinions when they know.
I'm just gonna have to interject here. I think the golf world needs Brandel Chambly because everybody needs somebody to hate. And if we're gonna spend time on this show talking about how bad he is, it's still something to talk about that, provides some comedic relief throughout this whole entire thing.
Content is content.
Content's content. That's right, Ross. I agree with this.
I'll say that,
I want something every week that's going to make Jack's gears get just grinded every week so that he can come on these airwaves and complain. I think it's great for the game.
My biggest problem with it is it's like the fucking NFL head coach, NHL head coach problem. It's the same people just because they're the names that have been around that are getting these opportunities. I could deal with Brandel if he was good at his job, but I genuinely don't think he's good at his job.
Do you want Chris Vosters as a free agent?
Yeah, he can stick to baseball. We'll leave him at that. He's not very good at stepping outside his comfort zone. We'll say that. But that's the biggest gripe that I have with it is like,
who would you replace him with?
Jonathan Coachman, believe it or not, someone who's done ESPN Plus and does multiple different sports. A guy who was on WWE before. I've heard this guy on ESPN Plus. I'd rather listen to him than I would Brandel Chambly, or just give other people opportunity. That's the biggest problem that I have with it. It's either the same people that have been around or a former player. That I just feel. So
are you a fan of Smiley Kaufman then?
I mean, I'm a fan of Smiley's interactions. I don't like when that takes over as the talking point of the broadcast, but I think it makes for like a cool interaction, and conversations with players I'm always down for. I still feel like they haven't found like a comfortable way to integrate that in. It was like the Kisner stuff at the Waste Management. It was like, okay, we love 16 at the Waste Management, but there's a golf tournament going on here. You know what I mean? So like,
I think for like those situations, you need to do all or nothing. You don't have, Smiley and Kiz at a specific hole or anything like that. It needs to be like Smiley and Kiz are in the booth and they're calling it. You need to let them call the shots all over the place. Like, okay, cool. It gets burnt out that they've been sitting at 16 all day. But if you put Smiley and Kiz in the booth and they're calling the entire fucking round and we're seeing shots everywhere, I think that content works long term. I think that works much better if they're truly calling the tournament as a whole, not a hole itself.
I agree. I completely agree, because it's taking away from the story that's being told when you're jumping ship from the broadcasters, you're jumping ship to holes, and you're watching guys who aren't even part of the tournament, but you just want to give these guys their coverage. Like, it just makes for a weird dynamic. And that was even the problem at the US Open. Like, no one knew who's kind of like the head honcho or the talker, really. It was just a bunch of guys sharing opinions, and nobody knew what the fuck was going on when we're all just screaming here, show us the golf. Show us the golf. I mean, dude, we're missing shots of the final pairings on Sunday of the US Open. Like,
yeah, didn't they miss a Rory shot
They missed a Rory tee shot. Patrick Cantlay, I mean, we saw like half of his drives. You would have thought he was dead like Matthew Pavon.
I was fine with them not showing a lot of Patrick Cantlay.
I mean, yeah, listen, that's not going to get a gripe from anybody. But still, just in general, like, how are we not seeing golf shots of Rory McIlroy in contention on a Sunday? Like, there's no excuse for that. NBC Sports, they're all over him, all right? They're not going to miss any of his shots, and we're still somehow missing shots on Sunday. It's a crime. It's a crime. Anyways, I don't want to go on the broadcast too long negatively because one positive that I do have to say, and it's been a positive for a handful of weeks now, it's been Johnson Wagner. And this goes back into the ties. Ross, I knew we had to bring it up for you, buddy. Goes back to the ties of just Bryson's wholesomeness. And I think to anyone just saying that this is like an act or anything from Bryson is just got it incredibly wrong, personally, is how I feel. And I thought you could just saw how genuine he was in that interaction with Johnson Wagner, just based on Johnson going to recreate that bunker shot as he's done in a lot of these majors. Out of nowhere, Bryson rolls up and Bryson, tells him he wants to see him hit the shot, goes and hits it a second time. Johnson Wagner puts it to like 1.5 feet. Saw a lot of jokes saying, well, they didn't ask Rory to go out there and putt that bad boy, which I thought was pretty funny. But again, just the wholesome moments that Bryson is able to create. And it seems like he genuinely enjoys to do those things and have that fun and to be behind a camera. Like, he's just gotten so comfortable in those situations because of YouTube. But Johnson Wagner just continues to deliver us gold late night on the Golf Channel, fellas.
Dude, it's become my favorite thing weekly is to watch Johnson Wagner try. And the key word is try. Because the best part about it is he knows the shtick. He goes with it that, guys, there's a 75% chance that I fuck this up royally and I don't even come close to what we're trying to do here. But he still goes with it and he gives it his best. Like the first one yesterday, I don't know if you saw the first shot he hit, absolutely scolded at the clubhouse.
Oh yeah.
and was terrified. I'm going to shatter one of those windows. And then in the middle of it is he's trying to play it off like, well, I did what I thought I would do. Here comes the golf cart. Oh, it's Bryson. Just happens to be like cruising by, makes him stop, gets off, sits there, has the trophy. Super wholesome, like telling him, no, drop another one. I want to see you do this because this is what I did. And then Bryson like coaches him through like how he hit the shot and everything and tells Johnson how to hit this shot. Johnson hits it and Bryson hit it to 3 feet. Johnson sticks it to 1.5 feet. And then he hands Johnson the trophy to take a picture with it and everything. And it could not be a more wholesome, perfect moment. The fact just live, you could see Johnson like freaking out the whole time as he's like lining up his shot. He turns around and is like, oh, congratulations, by the way. I've been meaning to tell you. I thought I'd see you later. And Bryson's like, no, we'll talk about that later. You hit the shot.
Right. Dude, no,
just absolutely incredible.
Him handing him the U.S. Open trophy and Johnson Wagner's face as he's grabbing the trophy was absolutely perfect. And it was also funny. I don't know if you saw this, Ross, but Pinehurst No. 2, their Twitter account, X account, whatever you call it, responded with a quote tweet of that video of Johnson Wagner's bunker shot. And they said, this is why we find balls on our clubhouse roof every single day, from the people in that bunker around the greens that just skull it over the green and put it on top of the clubhouse, which I thought is hilarious, which is probably where Johnson Wagner's first ball ended up, if I had to guess.
That's literally, I don't know if you saw Smiley Kaufman's comment. Smiley said, I watched Johnson hit both these, and I guarantee you if I hit that shot, my ball would still be in the air. Yeah,
still going, still in orbit. Yeah, that was great. Shout out to Johnson Wagner for all the entertainment that he provides us. Someone who has publicly come out and said, like, Bryson DeChambeau's kind of won him over with everything that's going on. So it was cool to see those two have that interaction following Sunday's round. I also wanted to give a shout out to low amateur Neal Shipley. Second time he's been low am in a major this year. Also did it at the Masters, of course. was runner-up in the U.S. Amateur last summer to Nick Dunlap. What a summer he's followed that up with here. Low-am at the Masters, low-am at the U.S. Open. Is going to be playing for the PGA Tour Americas, as unfortunately that runner-up finish in the USAM last summer did not count to his PGA Tour University ranking points. So I think he's 47th, which wasn't enough to get him a spot in the Korn Ferry Tour. Only numbers 2 through 10 get that after number 1, Michael Thorbjornsen, already got his card, and he's actually, spoiler alert, going to be making his professional debut this week at the Travelers Championship. But a fun little back and forth duel there, Ross, between Neal Shipley and Luke Clanton down the stretch. Another thing that I kind of wish the broadcast would have leaned into a little bit more, because we only got those like couple of shots late, and Luke Clanton's approach before he unfortunately missed that birdie putt that would have tied it between he and Neal Shipley. But Neal Shipley, man, someone to keep an eye on these next couple of years. Ross, your thoughts on that?
I absolutely think so. And before I go into that, I would like to point out that I really thought that was a huge miss by the coverage team, that we had the low AMs got paired together because of the score they shot. It wasn't because of the situation. They both were 4 over. They got paired together, and I just thought that was a huge coverage miss that we did not get a lot. We did not get a lot out of that. I thought that was a really big story, at least for like us three that watch golf weekly. I thought that was a really cool story, and that was a big thing that did not get covered a lot. That this is only like the second or third time in history that low AMs were paired together in the U.S. Open to decide who's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I think they said it was like the second time in 88 years or something like that.
Yeah, that we've had this has been the final pairing set up that way, where it was the low AMs for who's going to get the trophy. So I kind of hated that it really wasn't until late in the back nine for them, especially because they went off so early. I thought that could be like a story that you really dig into early on in the day, because like, come on, Bryce and everyone are going off at freaking 2:00 in the afternoon. Those guys went off at like 10-11 in the morning. They could have had their time to shine. Every couple holes you check in on the low AM battle, because they're literally playing each other.
Scotty Scheffler. That's the Scotty Scheffler effect, Ross. You had Scheffler playing early too.
True.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that.
But I think that was a big miss. But honestly, Neal Shipley, I love Neal Shipley for the awkwardness, because in our group chat, I was saying the other day, he gives off that vibe of the guy that's really good, but doesn't realize how good he is. And then when it gets brought to light, he's like Ricky Bobby of, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like he just gives off that whole vibe where he is an unbelievable player. He's a very young, talented player, and we wish him the best of luck on PGA Tour Americas. I don't think he's going to be there very long. I think his game is going to come through there fairly quickly, and we're going to be talking about him potentially earning a card fairly quickly in the next year or two and being a staple on the tour. But it's just every time he's on, he has that awkwardness vibe, but it's a good awkwardness, if that makes sense, of like I don't really know what I'm doing here. I was just swinging my clubs, and then they told me I did good, and so I'm on TV.
He's just here for a good time. He's here for a good time. But I agree. I think Neal Shipley, he'll find his way through to the Korn Ferry Tour eventually. He's someone who's come out and said like he grew up playing on hard courses. I believe Oakmont actually was one of the courses that he grew up playing. So like he's got a fixture for playing on those toughest tracks. We've obviously seen it all throughout the course of this summer with what he was able to do at Augusta National and at Pinehurst No. 2. But yeah, I completely agree. That could have been a cool storyline early on in the morning, but got Scheffler. It's the nature of the beast, as some will say. But all in all, to my last little, go ahead, Ross, before I get there.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's even more shocking that, Scotty got the limelight for the morning, and Scotty was a stroke behind the two low AMs. So
yeah, off week for Scotty.
It is.
off week for Scotty, a rare one, which we will get into when we talk about the Travelers Championship. But I don't know if you guys had anything else that you wanted to bring up from this tournament in particular, but I thought to tie a bow on it, a phenomenal golf course. I thought it was everything that I personally want out of a major championship. Had these guys ripping their hair out as we do every time that we step onto a golf course. I think it's appealing to the average viewer to watch, the best in the entire world actually struggle at this game when there are very few opportunities for them to do such, given how good the modern athlete is these days and how far modern technology has come. I thought Pinehurst was marvelous, and I didn't think it was out of hand whatsoever. I thought it was perfect. An ideal venue. You leave it in spots where you can't leave it in, you're going to make bogey. And everyone was making bogey too. I thought that was the fairest part about it, was everyone was missing these greens. And yeah, there was the rare shot, the Rory par 5 on the front 9, I thought was like kind of the most outlier tough one of the week, where he ran it a good, like it looked like, 10, 15 feet up on that green on the par 5, and he goes on to make 6 there. But all in all, like everyone got bad breaks, except for Bryson, I guess, if you ask Brandel Chambly. But everyone had to deal with the nature of the beast that was Pinehurst. Everyone had to play on these lightning fast green complexes that, if you putt it 2 feet too far, you're going to risk rolling it off the green and you're going to bring in a big number. And, the guys who were there, at the end, they just avoided those big numbers. And I thought that was the best part about it. And again, goes back to how incredible Bryson's scrambling was, because he missed fairways, he missed greens, he didn't play perfect golf, but the way that he was able to get out of harm's way, stay composed, stay focused, and just limit the damage. We talked going into the week, limiting the damage was going to be the biggest thing at Pinehurst. And I thought Bryson was the deserving winner of this tournament. So final thoughts from Pinehurst number 2, fellas, on the course.
Honestly, this was everything I hoped for from this tournament. For a year now, I've been just waiting, counting down the days to go back to one of the most genuine courses that there is in Pinehurst. And I thought it was perfect. I thought the Turtleback greens played exactly like they should play for a major championship, that there is a 3 by 4 foot spot you need to land this ball. If you don't land the ball there, or if you land the ball there, it's a birdie. If you don't land the ball there, it's a 7. Like, honestly, for me, this was the number 1 major for me recently in terms of major performance. The second would be Oak Hill at Rochester for 2023. Because, the winning score at Oak Hill was 9 under with Brooks. That you tested the field, and it was a 4-day marathon of needing to be consistent. I'm sorry, but the worst one we've seen in a long time was Valhalla. 21 under is not a major score. That we had Bryson playing under par consistently. The way the course set up, single digits under par is what a major should be always. And the thing is, it's not that hard to get there. And I hope superintendents take that knowledge moving forward, where even places like this year going to Troon for the Open is let it dry out, let it be fast, let it be hard, where, you get that 3 to 4 foot landing spot every single day when they move the hole location. If I land it here, I have a really good birdie opportunity or a 2-putt par. If I don't land it here, I'm taking my medicine and it's a 6 or 7. Like that's it. There's a handful of guys every single one of these tournaments that can hit that shot. We want to fucking see which guys can hit that shot. That is why it is a major tournament. I really, really enjoyed Pinehurst for all 4 days, seeing guys have to take their medicine, especially a bunch of the guys with the putts and the chips, where we're just trying to get it on and it rolls off the other side, and we're coming right back and doing it again. That is major golf. That is why we watch this game and we love this game. I think Pinehurst was perfect for that this year.
Yeah, it was my favorite major championship venue since I've really been following golf full time. It demanded straight play all the way through. And if you got offline by a little bit, you better hold your breath and you better have the stones to go and get up and down. And you're going to have to hit clutch, tough, uncomfortable shots. But that's what major championships should do. They should test all parts of a player's game. And I thought Pinehurst absolutely was, outside of Bryson, the biggest winner from this week. And I'm excited to come back here in 2029, only a few years down the road. And even just looking ahead to the next couple of U.S. Open venues, it is going to be an epic stretch these next few years. And as you alluded to, Ross, coming after Valhalla with a minus 21 winning score, this was very well done by the USGA to get this course as difficult as it was. I thought it was much needed. It was what the fans wanted to see, and it did not disappoint whatsoever. So thank you very much to Pinehurst number 2 for putting on such an incredible show. It was must-see television all 4 days long. So yeah, an epic U.S. Open, fellas, one that I don't think we'll ever forget. I think a Father's Day that we'll all remember for a long, long time. By the way, happy Father's Day to each of you once again, and happy Father's Day to everyone out there. I hope everyone had a lovely Sunday. But we got lots of other topics to get into on today's show as well. The first thing that I wanted to touch on, not that surprising, we saw Tiger Woods miss the cut at the U.S. Open this year. But I did want to be sure to mention on the show his comments that he brought up after the tournament. Tony, you were the one who kind of texted me about this and said you were watching his interviews, and you heard Tiger kind of allude to that this could potentially be his final U.S. Open. And I mean, just given the limited golf that he's been able to play these last few years, everything that's happened to his body, I don't think it's the most surprising news. I don't think U.S. Open set up good for him anymore. It's just not the best for his body and for his game at his age. So while it's not the most surprising news, it's still undoubtedly sad to hear the game's greats say, you know, we might not be seeing him tee it up at an event he's won 3 times and, you know, one of the most historic tournaments in all of golf that he might not have many more runs at it any longer.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you know, time is the great equalizer here in terms of this. You know, it's weird that it comes on the heels of the news that we got earlier in the week that the PGA Tour Policy Board is working on a special lifetime achievement exemption for him to play in signature events. Makes you think you're going to see a lot more Tiger, right? And then you get these comments, and maybe that's why. You know, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, maybe that's why. Maybe Tiger doesn't want to compete in majors as much longer because of stuff like we saw this weekend. Obviously, there was a couple of really unfortunate outings from Tiger this year. You had the Genesis with the flu. You know, you missed the cut at Valhalla, and then you know, obviously he made some history with his you know, I forget what the number is that he made for cuts at the Masters, but that's the only time we've seen Tiger into the weekend this year. Maybe some of the easier courses. I know we just got done talking about how great Pinehurst was, but maybe that's not what Tiger Woods needs in terms of, you know, getting out there and getting things done. You want to see him play 4 days. I don't think Sunday red is really marketable when Tiger Woods is done on Friday. So that's sort of the nature of the beast here. I know you'll still buy it, Ross. Many people will still buy it, but you don't want to. Tiger Woods doesn't want to be the butt of that joke. We know he doesn't. That's not Tiger Woods. He doesn't want to be the butt of any joke. He wants to be out there competing and winning golf tournaments. That's what his whole life has been. So I don't know what the future holds for him. We were joking about this, or not even joking about it, but just talking about it, you know, lighten up the PGA Champions Tour and TGL probably in the future, where he doesn't have to do as much walking, doesn't have to do as much of the dirty work that you'd have to do at a course like Pinehurst number 2. It's a sad reality that, you know, time gets all of us, guys. And that time is coming for Tiger Woods to sort of enter a different chapter. And that's probably not competing for majors anymore. And it's sad. But it's the unfortunate truth. And that was sort of the first time we've seen that from Tiger Woods. It's interesting that it comes in the same year where Phil Mickelson says that he's entering the last phases of his career. So there's a real changing of the guard. If it hasn't already happened and you haven't realized that there's a real changing of the guard. And he's just not the same guy that he was even, 2-3 years ago, back 15 years ago. You're not getting that Tiger Woods anymore. I don't think anybody's really surprised by it as much as they're more or less, sad about it because, everything that he's done. And that's why they're talking about a lifetime achievement exemption for him in these signature events. But, that sort of casts some doubt to me, Jack and Ross, if, you actually, even if they were to say you have this exemption, you can play in these tournaments. You don't need to go out and get a sponsor exemption for them. I'd be surprised, or I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't even show up to all of those. He made the comment about he's got one more this year and then he'll be back when he's back. That was the comment that sort of got me thinking, like, when you're back, in what form, where, how. People still turn on the television to watch Tiger Woods play golf. PGA Tour knows that, obviously. He's still a celebrity and a golfer. We don't have many of those. Bryson DeChambeau might be turning himself into one, but you don't really have that guy that everybody gravitates towards the way that they have Tiger Woods for a long time. So just interesting that he brought up, that might be his last. I would think we maybe get one more, but I think 2 is probably stretching it, guys. I don't know how much longer that's going to go on.
Yeah, it feels like just typical everything that goes on with the PGA Tour. We're getting mixed signals here. Like Tiger's, they're voting him in to play into all of these signature events, and it doesn't even sound like he really has that much interest to play in them all that much. Like if he's not wanting to play in U.S. Opens, sure, there are a couple of signature events that are on easier courses, but a lot of them are on strenuous courses as well that don't necessarily shape up well for his body. So I was really confused to see just kind of the way that he talked following missing the cut this week. I'm sure he was probably discouraged by his performance once again. And it's just even been odd. He hasn't even really been a talking point of any of these majors. There's always, the weird buzz of Tiger and Augusta, but the PGA Championship and US Open, it's almost felt like he hasn't even been here. And it kind of feels like even he's realizing that he's human here, and even he's not even sure what the future is going to hold. And it's just kind of like a wait and see game at this point. Any given day, it just depends on how he wakes up and feels that morning, right? Just kind of father time, old age gets everyone.
Every vibe I get is just Tiger for the first time in his lifetime that we've known him is just coming across as human. Where Charlie is growing up and Charlie is kind of chasing the tour and he wants to be a part of that, as well as he's not feeling 100% like he used to be, and he knows his limitations. And I mean, even this past week, look at his performance. Realistically, it was not terrible compared to what other guys shot on the course. He basically shot par for the rest of the field that missed the cut. He was right in there. It just feels like he's starting to come to terms with where he is in life, and he has bigger things on his agenda moving forward, where, hey, it's almost like a warning for the future. Hey, just so y'all know, as we move further down the road, I'm not gonna chase all these things the further we go. I'm gonna pick and choose and do my thing. I'll be there when I want to be there, but from here I'm just gonna kind of ride it out. And it's one of those cowboy rides away moments where he's not gonna fully call it quits, but he's giving you the insight to moving forward. Yeah, I'm gonna pick and choose my schedule, and I think it's more the PGA Tour is giving him the lifetime achievement award of, yeah, we're just going to give him an open invite to all these big events. Which ones he wants to play in, he can. We're not saying he's going to play every single one of these things moving forward.
And that's why I found it interesting, though, Ross, because they were talking about the 69-man fields and how this makes so much sense for Tiger to fill in that 70th spot. And then you get these comments, and I'm like, still think you're gonna need to fill it with someone because Tiger's not showing up to this event, or that event. So I mean, it's interesting.
I think it just kind of is what it is at this point, and I think it's the most human we've ever seen Tiger be, to just kind of be open and acknowledge feelings and everything, and I think he's more leaning towards the Champions Tour at this point. I think he's going to compete. I think he's going to try another year or two till he hits 50.
Ernie Els is shaking in his boots when you say that.
Well, hey, especially Bernard Langer already said he doesn't have much longer on the Champions Tour, so they're going to need a new star over there. And let me tell you, we'll be having double TV action if Tiger's playing the Champions Tour versus the weekly PGA. I will have double TV action every single time, and there'll be double bets in every single weekend, because watch Tiger go beat Bernard Langer's 54-hole whatever. Yeah.
Well, before Tiger gets to that stage, we'll see him one more time this year at Royal Troon for the Open Championship, which is just over a month. One thing we also learned from the final round of the U.S. Open at Pinehurst was the field for the Olympics, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually really pumped for. I'm really stoked for the Olympics. It was super fun back in 2020 when they lasted, when Xander Schauffele won that gold medal. Xander will be among the 4 Americans playing in Paris this year, along with Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, and Wyndham Clark. Bryson DeChambeau, as I mentioned earlier, not eligible to play. Jon Rahm did still qualify for Spain along with David Puig. There are still live players over there, but Bryson didn't generate enough qualifying points to get over those 4 Americans. So I thought that this also could have been a storyline that they could have played into a little bit more, Ross, in the final round, especially with, Corey Connors needing that top 10 to take that final spot from Adam Hadwin, and a couple of guys playing their way. Even Colin Morikawa and Wyndham Clark, their spots weren't guaranteed until the results of this tournament were over. And I thought, just like the amateur battle between Neal Shipley and Luke Clanton, this was also something that they kind of missed out on Sunday. And even like throughout the last few weeks, like they've mentioned the Olympics, the amount of Olympics commercials that we got all throughout the course of the U.S. Open was mind blowing. It's just like the Aeon Swing 5 and the Next 10 and all these things they implement. They tell us about it, but they don't fucking describe it. I don't know like what's going on here. I know the battles are happening, but I don't know like what guys need to do in order to get these spots. And I don't know how they necessarily need to qualify. And as someone who is excited about the Olympics, I think that's a huge miss, because you can pull into that even more. And again, this is something that only happens 1 out of 4 years. It's a rare opportunity where guys get to represent their countries in individual performance, which is super unique. And it just, again, it feels like another thing that the PGA Tour and the broadcast is kind of whiffed on, in my opinion.
So, Jack, here's a question for you. You just mentioned his name. Along with Jon Rahm, David Puig made the Olympic team for Spain.
Yeah. Morocco made it for.
Were you aware that the reason David Puig made the Olympic team for Spain is because he finished directly on the number he had to finish at the U.S. Open to make the team? Unless you're a golf diehard like us, no, you didn't know that David Puig finished right on the number he needed to make the Olympic team. That's shit that needs to be involved in these tournaments and this coverage moving forward. I'm sorry, but that is exciting. People do care about that shit. It's for pride and country. But no, like David Puig played on the number. David Puig knew where he needed to finish. He did. Corey Connors knew where he needed to finish. He did. Patrick Cantley knew where he needed to finish. He didn't.
This is something that needs to be played into, needs to be a big talking point, because these are ways to also just do your own network a favor The Olympics are going to be on NBC too. Like, at least get people excited about an event that you're trying to pitch here. You know what I mean? Like, it's just faulty marketing.
It's exactly that. But like, as much as we dislike, because it's like watching a paint dry on a fence, as much as we dislike Patrick Cantlay needed to finish second in the U.S. Open to qualify for the Olympic team. Patrick Cantlay finished third. That's a story alone right there, that he's hovering right on where he needs to make the Olympics. How did we not play into that? How did we not follow that? Especially, like you said, NBC is hosting the fucking Olympics.
Yeah.
How did we not play into that, Patrick Cantlay needs to get up there. He's one spot off from getting enough points. He's in the third or second pairing he's in the second to final pairing. Oh, he's got 4 to play, 5, 4, 3 to play, and he's right there. This is where he's got to finish to make the Olympic team. That's a whole nother level of story we could have built into this Sunday. And we just overhead gone, no, nothing. But also just gonna say it because I know my whole family and everyone's at home waiting for me to say it. Bryson not being on the Olympic team is bullshit because we use an archaic system for that. So
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Everyone wants to see Bryson representing the red, white, and blue, and hopefully he'll be able to do so in the near future if they can get this whole thing figured out. But Ross, I know you also wanted to do a fun little segment revolving around these Olympics based on, the OWGR getting the United States an extra couple of spots with guys ranked in the top 10, and even just in golf today, there's a lot of different rankings. There's the data golf rankings. You get the OWGR, but that obviously Live Golf doesn't accrue points towards that. So you'll see guys way far back. Jon Rahm slowly creeping out of the top 10. I'll turn it over to you, Ross. What was kind of the idea you wanted to go about here on today's show before we dive into the Travelers Championship?
So before we dive into the Travelers, I wanted to have a fun little segment and debate with you guys because I figured we're all winners after this past week, thanks to Bryson. I figured we'd deep dive into it. I was going to read off the current OWGR world rankings as of this morning. And then I wanted to compare and contrast what if we ranked our top 10 with college football standards. So college football standards including what have you done lately, what is consistent, name brand, recognition, power wins, power losses, all those things. So to start, I will just read off this morning, the OWGR World Rankings 1 through 10 were Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Ludwig Oberg, Wyndham Clark, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Jon Rahm, and Bryson DeChambeau came in at number 10, jumped 38 spots this past week to get into number 10. For me, and I thought this was fair, y'all can criticize me as much as you want after, and that's totally fair. But if we were going off of college football standards of what have you done lately, power wins, power losses, consistency, everything like that, I have Scotty number 1. Number 2, I have Bryson DeChambeau. Number 3, I have Rory. 4 is Xander. 5 is Colin Morikawa. 6, Ludwig Oberg. 7, Victor Hovland. 8, Wyndham Clark. 9, Hideki Matsuyama. And 10, rounding out, is the can of paint, Patrick Cantlay.
We actually are not very dissimilar whatsoever. We have the same top 6, Ross, believe it or not. I got Scotty at 1, Bryson 2, Rory 3, Xander 4, Colin 5, Ludwig 6. Where we differ is I do still have Rahm in my top 10 at number 7. I have Hideki at number 8, Victor at number 9, and then Wyndham rounding things out at number 10. So we're pretty similar. The only difference is you have Cantlay at number 10 in your top 10. I still have Rahm in mine, and we kind of have a shaken up order there at the bottom. But top 6, very similar. I'm interested to hear, Tony, what you have to say about this.
So I haven't even finished mine. I've just got 3 names written down so far.
Give us your top 3.
Well, it's obviously Scotty Scheffler, Bryson, and Rory. I think there's an argument for both guys between Scotty and Bryson where you can toss either one of those guys up there just based on the majors finishes so far this year, where either one of those guys could be your number one guy. If you want to take this into account, majors mean more. Bryson's had better major finishes than Scotty Scheffler. Scotty Scheffler has had better time on the tour, but Bryson's not in the field. This was an excellent question by Ben. I don't know if you want to bring that one up from earlier. Where do you think Bryson DeChambeau is at in the OWGR if he played in the same events as Scotty? Unfortunately, we don't know the answer to that question. We can speculate. Maybe Scotty doesn't have as many wins if Bryson DeChambeau is around, but I don't know, because what we watched with Scotty Scheffler is when he is on, he is the most dominant golfer in the world. So I think easily enough, you can stick Scotty Scheffler at number one and make that argument. But if we're going to go off of Ross's, power wins and consistency, I can make the case that Bryson DeChambeau's had a better year if we're ranking these guys out right now. This is where it gets interesting, because if you've got Scotty Scheffler number one and your reasoning behind that is, well, he's got more wins on the tour and he's got more consistent places on the tour, then Rory McIlroy is easily your number two because Bryson DeChambeau isn't there. So in the top three, I think you can make arguments all around. That's what makes this a really fun exercise. You start to go down the list after four. I think it's really a toss-up, guys, because you haven't seen any one of those names really jump out. You can argue Xander is probably that guy at number four.
I thought someone was going to have Xander at 3, if I'm being honest. I thought one of you guys was going to have Xander at 3.
I think there's a lack of finish there. You got the one. There is a lack of finish.
He's got the same amount of wins as Rory does.
Does he have
Rory won with Shane Lowry.
I will be the asshole and say that
it tossed the Zurich right out. It didn't matter. He's saying don't stop believing after that. It was electric.
Oh, that turns a lot of shit.
I'm going to be the asshole and say that I flipped it at the very last minute, but for most of the day, I did have Xander at 3 for the major win and the consistent top 10 finishes over. Yes, Rory has 2 wins on the year, but
do you think, okay, so then now we can start to debate, because you guys shat all over Valhalla. Does it count as a power win?
It's a major win.
You still got to go out there and do it. I think I think you can't hold the guys.
It's a major win, and he beat Bryson head to head.
Tony, let me ask you this: do you have Colin ahead of Ludwig, like both Ross and I do?
I think I would put him there ahead of Ludwig.
Just consistency has been so good.
I like guys that finish top 5.
Argument.
I like guys that finish top 5. You've seen Colin Morikawa in more top 5 finishes than you've seen Ludwig. I was actually surprised that he fell as far as he did on Sunday in the U.S. Open. Going into Sunday, I thought, or Saturday afternoon, moving day, I'm thinking, wow, this could be the week. This could be the week where he finally gets himself, and then everything just started to fall apart.
It's crazy. He finished T12. That's his floor, buddy. His floor is T12 at a course he's never played at in a major.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It is. And give him 5 years. You're talking about a guy that's going to be in that top 3. If everything goes right.
Might be our only hope of taking down Scotty Scheffler. Full blown, like Leia, like help me, Ludwig Oberg. You're our only hope.
I'm surprised that both of you guys had Hovland up as far as you have Hovland up right now. Is this based on last season's?
Yeah, based on last season. I have him at 9.
I have Hovland at 7, and my perfect comp for our college football crowd and everything is Victor Hovland is like that Alabama team that's won back-to-back national championships and had a tough loss early in the season, but you still know what that team is capable of. Where we're in the final week and they're sitting at 10-1, that that team can go off and win the whole fucking thing at any point in time. So I think he is very, very capable of holding that number 7 spot on the list.
That's Nick
here's the part that grinds my gears about this whole entire thing. The USA Ryder Cup team is basically not on this list outside of a couple of names here. But look at how they filled out that roster last year. And it bothers me. I don't think Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Sam Burns, none of these guys are in the top 10.
It's been a down year for a lot of American golfers. I believe Maverick McNeely right now is 9th in the President's Cup standings, I want to say.
I mean, I technically don't hate it because I love Mav when he's on.
Too,
Mav can play.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year for a lot of Americans. I mean, even until this last week, Patrick Cantlay had been lost.
Yeah, and I mean that's no shot against Maverick McNeely because we are a big fan on this podcast, but it's more the rest of the teams aren't showing up moving forward. But yeah, I had to have Hideki in there for the consistency that makes some noise outside looking in, but making noise, deadly threat. And then I kept Wyndham in at 8 because if you go over the past 12 months, we have a U.S. Open as well as we have another big win out in California to start the year. Where I think it's another water holds itself with everything that he's been doing over the course of the year. And the really good Sunday at the Masters just still sticks with me that he was way down there and he flew up the board and showed what he's made of. Hasn't played well since, but I think can't be written off. Still needs a top 10 spot compared to someone like Jon Rahm that hasn't won on LIV, has come back to PGA Tour events and hasn't done shit even close to what he was doing before he left. So I did throw him out. And then Patrick Cantlay is just the can of paint that is sitting in at number 10 because
sponsored by DeWalt.
Yes.
Very fitting for Patrick Cantlay. Couldn't be more fucking boring.
Yep.
But yeah, pretty on par there. Tony, is there any takes on the rest of that list there? Honestly, it's kind of my biggest takeaway when doing this top 10, guys, is kind of what you alluded to, Tony, is like it's very watered down after you get through those first like 7 or 8. Like there's not even really a consensus top 10 anymore. Like it feels like it's been a really weak year for a lot of big names.
It has. That's the exact take that I have, Jack, is that you get through, one, you could make an argument that you can get a top 5, but to get a top 10 right now, we've seen a lot of different guys just show up and win tournaments. Look at Robert McIntyre, for example, a guy that can just win, out of nowhere, it seems like, for a week. And then you have a guy like Nick Dunlap show up and win a turn. There's been so much variety, which I think is good for the game. But outside of Scotty Scheffler, no one's winning consistently.
Even look what Brooks Koepka did in majors this year.
I was going to say, Brooks, that's a name that should be on this list.
I wanted to put him there, but he's given me no fucking choice.
I did the exact same thing. And honestly, I think we could all be in agreement. There's a consensus. There's a top 6. After that, you could make an argument for anybody else. I think you go Scotty, Bryson, Rory, Xander, Colin, Ludwig, and after that, it's open. It's just free reign. You could make any other argument for who's 7 through 10, and you could potentially have 15 players fight for those 4 spots.
Yeah, should make for a very interesting President's Cup year. I'll tell you what, with a lot of spots still up for grabs as we're starting to get into that late stretch of the season.
We need to clip this portion and then go back like when the FedEx Cup starts and see what our top 10s look like then after we have our last major. And
is there even a reason to play the FedEx Cup this year, or do they just hand it to Scheffler, right? Like,
hey, no, he's still, guess what? That's only going to give him a 2-shot advantage on at the Tour Championship. So,
and it's true.
He's blown it the last couple of years there. So we'll see. But I think that'll move us on to this week's Travelers Championship, guys, which is the final signature event of the 2024 season. All the big names are going to be there except for Rory McIlroy, of course, as might have taken that whip. He might have been driving so fast he drove it straight across the Atlantic. Might be over the pond already.
Well, he did say that he's not coming back until, I believe, the Genesis Scottish Open. So
yeah, it's gonna be a little.
Did you guys see that the net? One last thing I'll leave you with, Jack. Did you see the Netflix crew followed him to his car?
Oh yeah. I told Ross before you actually jumped on.
Can't wait for that episode. It's going to be fun, fantastic.
But this is a tournament this week here at TPC River Highlands, where it is in their 41st year, I want to say, hosting this tournament. But it gets awards for being one of the best well-run tournaments on the PGA Tour year in and year out. They usually get a good, passionate New England fan base, and that's attracted a lot of players back to this tournament year in and year out. But for the second consecutive year, it gets designated event status. We saw Keegan Bradley win here last year. He was hot dogging it down the 18th fairway. It was like his pinnacle career moment aside from winning a major championship. But now the field is shrunk down to 69 players here this year. And it makes for a really interesting golf course because, guys, we've been on this run of long and thick, rough, demanding, penal golf courses. TPC River Highlands is not in that same boat whatsoever. It's the shortest course we'll see on the PGA Tour this year at only 6,800 yards, and courses under 7,000 yards are basically a rarity in today's day and age. So the shortest track they're going to play all year, it's a par 70. There's only 2 par 5s, 12 par 4s. 10 of those 12 par 4s are shorter than 450 yards. So as opposed to the long irons, the 4, 5, 6 irons that guys have been hitting the greens at Jack's place and at Pinehurst No. 2, this is going to be a wedge fest. And the fairways are very wide and receptive, some of the wider fairways that we've seen over the last couple of months. And really the way to separate yourself here is approach and putting, which could make it interesting in terms of what we just saw from Scotty Scheffler in this last week. Ross, what I just said was one of the key determining. I forgot that you have your earbud in. What a world that we live in nowadays.
Technology is beautiful. Isn't it?
Technology is beautiful. You're all good.
I had one of Wesley's potty alarms was going off in the background, so I was trying to hit that thing real quick.
You're all good. I'm glad that you were able to still stay tuned with us and hear what I was saying. But with putting being one of the key ways to separate yourself on this course, because guys are just going to be hitting so many wedges. The fairways are easy to hit. The greens are relatively easy to hit here. Scotty Scheffler obviously comes in at 4-1. Did not look like himself last week at Pinehurst No. 2, mostly because of the putter. Out of all the players that missed the cut, Scotty Scheffler was dead last in strokes gained putting throughout the course of the week. What are your thoughts on Scotty Scheffler at 4-1 coming off of last week at the U.S. Open? We know he can separate himself from tee to green. Are you confident in Scotty's chances on a course like this, Ross?
Until further notice, I'm already debating, do I just start making my 5 picks and then also throwing the exact amount of money that I bet on my 5 picks on Scotty just to cover my bases to stop losing money? Because currently that's what I've been leaning towards for a while.
Should have had a big win this week, Ross. You got some extra money in the sports book account to cover yourself. It's not a bad strategy.
I do have extra money, but yeah, I've officially just been hitting the point where, you can make fun of me all you want, but I like to be financially responsible, and financially responsible would be throwing a side bet on Scotty to cover my losses and just break even and play again next week moving forward. I have not done that yet. I do only have 4 on my card so far. I'm pretty sure, Jack, I'm going to be picking your brain for the next couple days until I can find a number 5. But do we want me to go with what I have so far?
Yeah, run it through. I got a couple made myself as well.
All right. So, first one, gonna start. We're celebrating 1 year officially on tour this week for him. I've got the Ludes. I got the Ludes at 16-1 on my card this week. I think just that culmination, good vibes, great performance last week for the first 2.5 days, then kind of hit a rough patch, but I feel like he's super close So 16-1, I did like the Ludes.
I absolutely understand it. And quite honestly, I was thinking today when I was breaking down this course, I said, wedge shots, approach play, and putting is kind of how you separate yourself in this field. I mean, he did both of those things marvelously at the US Open. It was just kind of the chipping woes that came back to bite him, a couple of numbers too big, but Ludwig was absolutely someone that I've been looking at, and I know he'll be popular this week once again. Who else you got?
After that, we're going to move a little further. Once again, the putting in the short game he's top 15 right now. It's more off the tee that's my concern, but if he can put it together, he's been there the past few weeks. I nabbed Sam Burns at 35-1.
And that's a good number too. I know that's already down to 30. I'm guessing you got that at DraftKings. I saw the 35-1 that was out there this morning. And again, a guy with approach upside, good putting upside. And over the last 66 holes of the US Open, fellas, Sam Burns shot 5 under. Wasn't really ever part of the picture, but wound up finishing even. It was the best major finish of his entire career. It feels like he's kind of gotten back on track, I would say, after I think things got a little chaotic for him as his wife gave birth to his first child. His play wasn't really all that consistent. I'm not sure his sleep schedule is all that consistent either, but it feels like he has kind of found his footing and was right there a couple of weeks ago in Canada, but just oddly couldn't make any putts on Sunday. So Sam Burns is certainly someone I've had my eye on early in the week as well, Ross.
After that, we move a little further down the board. He's been all vibes lately, and I have not had him on my card recently. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the week that we break through. I do have Tom Kim at 45-1.
Love it. He was my first bet that I made this week. And I was hoping watching the moves that he was making on Saturday. I'm like, Tom, I don't need you going too low on Sunday because I don't need that price dipping too much. I don't need you to be too popular. He struggled on Sunday, and I'm honestly okay with it. His ball striking has been spectacular over the last month. The putter has been a lot better too. Made his first appearance at this course last year, T38, lost 3.5 strokes with the short game, but gained 6.5 strokes ball striking. So he seems plenty comfortable here. The distance, there's not a lot of it here, so that should give him no issue. I'm all aboard the Tom Kim train this week. I love to hear that.
And the final one, Jack, I really think you're going to appreciate, because reading your wonderful article today, giving us the course preview, going through the course comps, the tournament comps overall, I think this man's game sets up. I think he's been in a quiet period for quite some time, but he's got the game if he can put it together, and I really like the number. At 75-1, I have Denny McCarthy.
Man, he was the first round leader here last year. He shot a 60 on day one last year and wasn't able to get across the finish line. But I was on Denny a couple of weeks ago, the last time we were in Texas. It feels like every time I bet Denny, it doesn't end up going well. But he's one of those guys that going into this year, Ross, I said, man, it really feels like he's going to win based on the amount of close calls he had, the close call that he had with Victor at Memorial. And this does feel like it would be a spot for him with how he's able to roll the rock. I don't know if I can trust his approach play personally to do it, but I understand the upside 100%. This feels like a good Denny spot, and that feels like a good number as well. I don't know if I'll get there personally, but I don't hate it whatsoever. Is that all you got so far?
Those are my 4 so far. I will be picking your brain over the next 3 days as we approach round 1 for me to round out my card, because I like to always throw in 5. But that's where I stand right now. So those are my 4 at the moment where I'm sitting.
Well, I've joined you with Tom Kim. I bet him at 60-1 when he first opened this morning. I bet another guy that we actually talked about this time last week, Christian Bezuidenhout. How about this, fellas? He finished T32 last week at the US Open. That was his second worst finish since the middle of March. He has just been a top 20 machine, and they've been in a lot of good events. 4th at the Memorial, top 20 at the Players, top 20 at Wells Fargo as well. Someone who, kind of like Denny McCarthy, has a ton of putting upside. He's 11th on tour in putting this season, and just been playing so consistently, and I feel like has really made strides in his game. Asking him to win this event is kind of a lot, if I'm being honest. But 90-1, I felt like was a really good number. And then I bet Akshay at 100-1 just because I thought that was a very good number for his upside. He hung around at the U.S. Open through a lot of it last week, and I feel like he's really starting to find his footing on tour, and I really believe in his upside. So that's where I've gotten. Up top, I do want to give a shout out to my boy Michael Madura, aka Mad Dog. Didn't mean to click off that so soon. Colin Morikawa would be my play at the top, although I don't know what the odds look like now that Rory McIlroy has withdrawn. I can't imagine they're very good. And I know the odds, since it is a signature event with only 69 guys, I can't imagine they're very good. So quite honestly, I don't know if I'm going to take a stab at the top of the board this week. It kind of worries me, but these guys also have been on a 2-week grind. I wonder how many of them are just exhausted showing up for a pay cut after, the heat at Pinehurst #2. I sure they want to be here and collect their check and they want to play well, but I think there could be alternative motivations in a week like this. So I don't know how involved I'll be at the top.
Colin's still holding 12-1.
I'd want to bet him at like 16, but I get the 12. He's been playing so consistent. Putting's been good.
Since Rory pulled out, Xander's the one that's taken the biggest hit. Xander's down to 7.5.
Yeah, absolutely not doing that. As good as Xander's been playing, it felt like he played bad again last week, and he still finished T8. So that's pretty remarkable. But Colin and Sam Burns are kind of the two at the top that I'm hovering around. I've thought about Brian Harman, who's played really well here at this course and had a decent week last week, but haven't made any moves at the top. I'll be sure to post everything when I do, and I'll be having my betting article coming out later in the week as well. Tony, before we kind of wrap things up, are there any players in particular from this field that you like their chances this week, or even just anyone that you want to talk about before we kind of close things out here, my friend?
I had a couple. I'm going to say it right off the top. I'm in with you guys on Tom Kim. I did not expect Ross to have that pick, but I'm in on Tom Kim. I love his game, and I'm right there with you, Jack. I thought he was looking pretty good this weekend, and it's about time for a Tom Kim win. One name that you guys didn't toss out there that I like right now for some odd reason is Tony Finau. He was just there for a little while, and it seems like he's sort of due. This is all just a field thing. I kind of like Tony Finau instead of the Sam Burns play. You can get Tony Finau for just a little bit better value than Sam Burns. They're right there next to each other. And then a little bit further down, do you want to take a flyer on Keegan Bradley or Max Homa?
One thing I will say, I didn't take a flyer on Keegs last year, and I felt really stupid because it's in his neck of the woods. And watching him hot dog it down the 18th fairway with me.
Maybe not an outright, Jack, but a top 10.
He'll be someone that he's coming in this week one to play well, more than you could say for a lot of guys. So yeah, I don't know if I'll get there in the outright, but I wouldn't hate it in maybe like a top 20 market per se, because that feels right for where Keegan's game's been.
And update, Sam Burns and Tony Finau both down to 30.
I thought you were just about to say they both withdrew. I was about to be like, well, shit, there goes that entire segment. But
no, Keegs is still available at 50.
For Finau, man, the approach play remains so good. The questions are just with the putter, man. Can he make enough putts to get to 20, 21 under what I imagine the winning score will probably be? I think it's a very fair line. But the question that I always come back to, Tony, and it's one that me and Joey always ask each other, are there good players here? Yeah. Probably means Tony Finau can't win. He usually doesn't win when there's good players there, as much as I love the guy. But I don't hate the number whatsoever. Who else did you bring up? I apologize.
I was going to say I was in on Colin Morikawa.
You brought up Keegs.
Then Keegs, yeah.
Yeah, you brought up Keegs. Always got a soft spot for my boy Keegs. I don't know if I'll get there, but I'm keeping a close eye on him because he's starting to play good golf. I always do worry about him on weekends because he's an emotional golfer and he gets real nervous out there. Unfortunately, he had a big enough lead last year where he could make 3 bogeys in the last 4 holes and it still wasn't even close. But this is, I'm very excited for this tournament because it is different than what we've been getting. It feels like this is a good time to kind of roll out a little bit of a different style course. And I think it is going to make it intriguing that there is only the big guns here, and they've been playing on these long, difficult golf courses. They're getting a little bit of a curveball this week. So who out of the big dogs are going to be able to adapt and kind of fit the course perfectly at TPC River Highlands? That's what we're going to see here later on this week. And just as a reminder, I will be having my betting article coming out tomorrow for my finalized picks for the Travelers Championship. Anything else we forget to get to here, boys? I know we're about an hour and a half in already, so we probably touched on most of it, but just want to double check before I sign us out.
My final thought, Scotty Scheffler needs to stay away from barbers. That's it. That's all I've got.
I really wish Scotty would have withdrawn and not Rory. That's my final thought.
That's all I got, man.
People's champ. Go Bryson DeChambeau, baby. Those hat tip workouts and the fist pump pull-ups that he was doing, all that training, it paid off for him. So congratulations to Bryson DeChambeau, and thank you again to Pinehurst No. 2 for such an excellent tournament. It is legitimately going to be one I never forget, and thank you to everyone out there who tuned into this episode of Golf on Tap. Just again, a quick reminder, if you don't already, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you may listen to your shows. Make sure to go and do that. It's 100% free, won't cost you anything that way. You can check in on all of the latest shows if you're not able to catch up with us live, and make sure to go and follow Golf on Tap on X as well. We greatly appreciate it. Everyone out there, you can find Tony on X at Tony on Tap. Follow Ross at RossJohn22. As for me personally, you can find at Jack Bushman 2. Until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your day. Crack 'em, lock 'em. We'll see you on the next episode